Okay, as promised, I'm going to do just a quick build video on Springtrap. There's nothing, no crazy editing in this one, no long-winded explanations, maybe, who knows. But since we've gone over the perks and the add-ons, I figured going over some builds for Springtrap is a good idea. Originally, I was going to have all of these have interesting names. Only one of them ended up with that. Two of them, technically. But we're going to go out with 10 builds here. And the first one, as you can see on screen, is what I would consider Springtrap's best build. Now, a few things here. We have Indo CPU and Restaurant Menu. These two add-ons are invaluable in almost every match and will almost always get use. You could swap Indo CPU for Bonnie's guitar strings if you wanted to, but I think Indo CPU overall is more useful than Bonnie's, but that's a personal preference thing there. Corrupt Intervention is also interesting, as Springtrap's early game can often be pretty bad, depending on the map and a lot of situations. So Corrupt Intervention helps you with that, but if you want to swap this for Lethal Pursuer, I completely understand, and it will get the match started much, much quicker. So I think that's definitely a positive there. We're going to talk about Bam last, but Popular as a Weasel is probably one of Springtrap's best slowdown perks. You can swap this for Ruin or Pain Res, but I feel like Pop works better on him since he has that ability to get to the gens much faster than most quick killers do because of how his doors work. Again, just some form of major slowdown here. I would say either Pain Res or Pop or even Jolt. It's up to you. And then Bamboozle, this shuts down a lot of loops that Springtrap struggles on, particularly Shack, but also TL walls, which, depending on where the tile is placed, can be very difficult for him to play in general. And then last I have on here is Eruption. I think with how much Springtrap kicks gens, this works out the best for him, but this last perk slot on this build in particular is basically anything you want. If you want to save the best for last for whatever reason, or Brutal Strength, or another Vault Speed perk, anything like that, that's what this slot is for. I think Eruption is the most consistent, but you could put Ruin here, you could put Pain Res on here on top of Pop Goes the Weasel. There's a lot of things you have with this. So if you're looking for the best of the best of the best build for Springtrap, this is that build. Next, we have the Foxy Go 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 build, which was one of the ones that I was actually able to name. But pretty much this is just an Obsession Chase build. So the way this build works is you have Lethal Pursuer, which shows you the location of the survivor at the beginning of the match. Hopefully you figure out which one's your obsession. You teleport over there with a door, find the obsession, hit them with an axe, Celebrate poster goes off, it speeds everything up, you down that survivor, purple guy drawing helps you get that down if need be. You down that survivor, you put them on a hook. If they are not the obsession, you get the aura on the obsession. If they are the obsession, then Furtive Chase activates. When Furtive Chase activates, you get 10% haste and undetectability for 18 seconds, which you can then use to go find the obsession. And if it isn't, again, and when Friends of the Inn activates and it changes who the obsession is, Nemesis activates and you get the aura reading on them anyway. So no matter what, you know where you're going and who you're going to. Worst case scenario, if you're chasing someone who isn't your obsession, then you just get them to stun you with a pallet with Nemesis, and now they are, and the whole cycle repeats again. This is a very feast or famine build. Sometimes it will work and you will end games very quickly. Sometimes it won't work and games will still end very fast. But if you want a brain off, no use, like, you just play the game build, this is your build. Next, we have M1 Trap, which is basically just Springtrap as an M1 killer. Restaurant Menu and Foxy's Hook for the add-ons. The entire point of this build is you're not really using your axe to damage. Not saying you can't do it with this build, but it's really not the goal here. You're throwing your axe down with Foxy's Hook to get the haste speed boost, M1ing them as much to get Stabiffle stacks and Rapid Brutality to go off, using Bamboozle to block loops that you can't really play very well with or without your axe, and then Languid Touch. This could be swapped out. I just prefer this because it avoids Lithe and, not Sprint Burst, but Lithe and Dead Hard, and makes it so we don't have to worry about those things nearly as much. Once this build starts getting going, you'd be surprised how well it can be. At the end of the day, this is basically just Clown with only yellow bottles. But that's still very, very powerful at specific times. Next is the Hex build. Remnant could be swapped out here, but I have Remnant and Bonnie's guitar strings. And the reason for these two together in particular, it's so you know which gen to go to get the use out of Remnant. But the hexes in this build are Ruin, Blood Favor, Retribution, and Pentimento. Ruin and Blood Favor being the main two. You could swap Ruin for crowd control, but I found more use out of Ruin personally. And the way this basically works is you see a gen in red, teleport to it, Remnant activates, they don't have any pallets to use for about 8-ish seconds, and then you hit them with either your axe or your M1, and then Blood Favor activates, and now they don't have any pallets to use anyways. While you're doing this, they were scared off the gen for a little bit, even if it was just from Remnant, and Ruin activates, giving you some regression. Next is Retribution on here, which basically means once they cleanse one of these, you get full aura reading on everybody and know exactly where to go. And then Penti is just here as a backup. Something that should be noted about Pentimento that I tell a lot of people is do not worry about getting more than 1 Penti up. If 4 totems have been cleansed, only put 1 Penti down. There's no need to put more than 1 Penti down. You get the full 20%. Yes, you get an additional 3 for the other totems, but it's really not worth it. And you waste the survivor's time more if you do them one at a time. But that's pretty much how the hex works here. You can really throw any hexes into this. The key one here is Blood Favor. Springtrap works very well with Blood Favor. Next is the Grab build, another one with Celebrate poster on this. So, as I said in my perks video, Play With Your Food is interesting on Springtrap because he doesn't lose stacks when he grabs a survivor. So, if you find the Obsession and get 3 stacks, hit the survivor with your axe and then grab them, you will still have 2 stacks to Play With Your Food at the end of it. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because there's ways to make grabs way more common and much faster. So we're running Celebrate poster. If you land a close range axe on somebody, Celebrate poster is almost guaranteeing you the grab. But then we have Paper Plate, which means the axe stays in them for an extra second. It gives you that tiny bit of leeway to make sure you get that grab. Now, the ideal situation for this is then when Superior Anatomy and Unbound come into play. You're already going 10% faster once you land the axe because you'll lose the stack. So you're going 10% faster. You gain 5% more because the axe is being thrown. So you go up to 115 and then 125. Superior Anatomy lets you vault the window that they just vaulted, which is when you want to hit them with the axe the most. And then Unbound, once you go through that super fast vault animation, also from Celebrate poster, you then get 7% more haste for 10 more seconds. And the genetic limits, the only reason this perk is on here is to stop Lithe from ruining everything. You hit a survivor with an axe as they are doing the window vault, Lithe will not activate, and this will stop that from being an issue for getting the grab. And you basically just run at them like a race car, get the grab, keep your 2 stacks to Play With Your Food, and then move on to your next target. Then we have the Ventilation Error build. I mentioned this a bit in my Remnant video. However, I didn't really do a full video on this. So the Ventilation Error build is really interesting and something only Springtrap can do. So the main crux of this entire build is going to be Cruel Limits. And the way this works is once the gen pops, Cruel Limits activates, and every window on the entire map is blocked for 30 seconds. So for the next 30 seconds, the survivors can't use any windows. So the way to leverage this is this doesn't stop pallets. So I came up with the idea of adding in Remnant because it does stop pallets. And then we added in Tinkerer so I know when a gen is going to pop. So basically the idea here is you're chasing, playing the game like normal, you see Tinkerer go off, go over to one of your doors, wait for that door to pop. The second it pops, you teleport through. Streamers get you there a little bit faster, not too much more. And then Cruel Limits activates and Remnant activates. For the next 8 seconds, they can't use anything. They aren't working with anything. On top of that, since the generator is completed, Batteries Included activates, and now you have 5% haste in that area. So even if you have your axe on you, you're moving faster to get that down more quickly. Now, this doesn't always work. Sometimes, map to RNG or the survivors pre-ran really quickly can make this very difficult to use correctly. But when it does, it's hilarious. You're not going to win a lot of matches with this, but it is a very unique build that only Springtrap can do. The last perk on here is Deadlock. I didn't really mention it because the entire point of Deadlock on this build is just so Tinkerer doesn't proc and 2 gens pop at the same time. It's just here as a lifesaver. That way nothing happens like pop, pop, pop. It would be more like pop than pop. So, yeah. And then we have the Slugging build. We discovered this a while ago. I did an actual whole video on this. This is a little bit more rudimentary with the add-ons, but Access Panel is the key one here. The reason being is Access Panel is the only add-on he has that can detect slugs, but you will be surprised how useful this is. And the restaurant menu just because it's good. You could literally put anything onto this slot. You can put Indo CPU or Foxy's Hook or anything you really want. Just Access Panel is just here so you can track slugs next to doors. Discordance helps you so you know exactly where all the survivors are, and you'd be surprised how often this will get you downs. It is generally a good perk, but for slugging in particular, it lets you know when survivors are coming for the save as well. If you see Discordance on a gen, and you slug somebody and walk away, and then you see Discordance go away, someone is coming for the slug, so you know you can go back there and patrol the area. Corrupt Intervention. The early game with this build is terrible. It is so, so bad, and I highly recommend Corrupt Intervention. It saves you from that early game issues, because a lot of times you do want to do a bit of hit and run at the beginning of the match with this build and injure the people so that the resetting takes a little bit longer and they can't just come over and pick up the slug with no recourse at all. Ruin, because Ruin works very well when survivors have to get off of gens, and when you're giving them another objective like slugs to go pick up, Ruin can be very, very useful as the regression penalty will keep going. And then last one here is Dominance. This is literally just here to protect Ruin. You can swap this for Thrill of the Hunt you want. However, I found Dominance has more value because you get that info on the survivors that have been downed. Or I'm sorry, from the survivors that are doing your totem, so you know when to go for it, and if you happen to be in the area, who to go for, because now they know where the totem is. And if you're playing in solo queue and not a Swift, there's a chance that no one else does. Now, with the introduction of Overture of Doom, still the best named perk in the entire game, Springtrap actually has the potential to move his terror radius around quite a bit. This is probably the only time you're going to see Fazcoin in this entire thing. As much as I love this add-on, it's more like an add-on I add in when I don't know what to do, but this is a build around it. With Access Panel, you can throw your axe into a door, and it comes out another door on the other side of the map. You gain undetectability, and your terror radius moves over there. Throw an Unforeseen. When you kick a gen, your terror radius is on the gen for 30 seconds. Dark Devotion. Whenever you damage a survivor, your terror radius is transferred to them for the next 45 seconds. And then Overture of Doom. If a survivor does the marked gen, your terror radius transfers to that gen as well. And then Dominance is just a Protect Overture of Doom. Again, this build isn't super, super good. It really isn't. I actually don't like this build that much, but it is a unique gimmick that Springtrap definitely can do and does have. Next up is the in-game build. Obviously, Loot Bag is a very good in-game add-on because once the survivor has the axe in them, no one can leave if they're near that survivor, and you can just grab them and leave. However, obviously, combining it with other in-game perks can lead to some hilarious situations. Greasy Paper Plate is here literally just so the axe stays in that person that 1 extra second. That can mean the difference. Now, if there are multiple people at the gate, I would suggest going after the person without the axe in them and downing the other person and putting them on a hook, which would then activate Blood Warden and stop them from leaving anyways. It's also a good failsafe for Blood Warden, as let's say Blood Warden has 2 more seconds before it's gone. If you land an axe on a healthy survivor, Loot Bag would still prevent them from leaving, so you can use it in situations like that. No Way Out, because it stops the gates from opening, makes them want to open them faster. Remember Me, the big thing with Remember Me here is that it just makes the gate take longer to open, especially if the session is dead, then that 30% is always there. On top of that, we have Haywire. Haywire is not the greatest perk in the game, and I actually did get this wrong in the perk video, but this basically stops them from being able to 99 gens, or gates. So if they are 99 in gates, again, trying to avoid Blood Warden or Loot Bag, they just can't. I think some people are overlooking how good Haywire can be in an in-game build in particular, but it's definitely worth it for this. Things I would not recommend for an in-game build, as I said multiple times, do not run Terminus and do not run Noed. Noed can be good for those insta-downs, don't get me wrong, I think that's fine. However, Terminus is the one you really don't want to run. Loot Bag only works if the axe is embedded in somebody. If you down someone with the axe, they will escape. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. So just keep that in mind, especially when there's like 3 survivors going to the gate and you're trying to target a specific survivor. Make sure it's the one that's healthy, that way the rest of them also can't leave. And that's really it. There are many Springtrap builds. I know people who have preference for almost every single add-on with the exception of 2 of them in particular, which is Remnant and Office Phone. But apart from those 2, you can completely build Springtrap however you want. You could throw on Iridescent Coin to give yourself undetectability more often, or throw on Foxy's Hook to give you that haste if you don't feel comfortable with it. Even Chica's Bib, I have entire builds around Chica's Bib. You can run this with Overwhelming Presence so you get the aura reading once it lands. You can use this to counter things like Overcome if that's giving an issue, or even Dead Hard. You can throw on Mindbreaker on here, which isn't on here, however, it is currently bugged as of the recording of this. But Mindbreaker is also a very good perk for Springtrap because it stops the camera reveal from survivors that are on gens. Purple Guy Drawing is also very strong and something that a lot of people like. Even Celebrate Poster. We can sit here and argue about whether it's good or bad all day. I've had these arguments before, and I know someone in the comments is probably going to as well. That's fine. At the end of the day, though, I know people who swear by this add-on, and I know people who don't. It still has its uses, and it's fun to use. That's the big thing here. Even Party Hat. I've used Party Hat for the information it gives, but also to leverage more on Chica's bib, or even with Foxy's hook. There's also a combo with Party Hat with access panel, so you get more information when you throw your axe through the door. Even Freddy's hat. As much as people hate this add-on, once you use it for a little bit, you can see the potential this add-on definitely has. You don't have to back up as much for orbitals. You go for more close-range shots, which in my opinion is actually more powerful in Springtrap than the long-range ones. But there's a lot here. Even with the browns, even Rotten Pizza and Paper Plate and Menu. I mean, I use Paper Plate and Menu in a lot of these builds. Streamers, if you want that for just that tiny little bit of extra teleport speed. Badge, if you prefer to be undetectable more often. I mean, you could throw on Badge and Coin, and you would be undetectable for a grand total of 25 plus 10. That's 35 seconds of undetectability on command that you can keep refreshing as much as you want. There is a lot of options here. And I hope this video showed a few of those, but also let you kind of get those gears a-turning. A lot of times when I'm trying to come up with builds for Springtrap, after testing everything, it really comes down to I pick either one perk or one add-on, and I try to build completely around it. And Springtrap is in the unique position with his add-ons where he can do that. That is my favorite thing about this killer, is the variety he has and his ability to virtually run everything. Now, is he the best at all of those things? Are all of them going to be super meta? No, but he can use them in a way that other killers can't. Hunters can't run M1 perks. She just can't. She has no real way to make them work that isn't outside of like a super niche gimmick. And same with like Chucky. While I love Rapid Brutality on Chucky, he can't really run it as a meta perk. I just think it feels nice to run. It's the one thing that like Kin, in my opinion, has over Blight. Blight, while very strong, Kin can run anything because he's an M1 killer. So there's a lot of builds that work on him that don't work on Blight because of that. Same with Pinhead. That's one thing that makes him very strong is his versatility. His add-ons don't allow for it, but the fact that he's an M1 killer that has a very good map traversal and all these things makes up for it. Singularity and Vecna also have this same thing. At the end of the day, most of their hits come from their M1s, Springtrap more than Vecna. So as a result, they are able to run whatever they want, whether it's M1 builds or M2 builds. Undetectability or haste or anything like that, and they can make good use out of it. And it's something I applaud behavior for with Springtrap. But in any case, let me know you all's builds. I know you guys have told me some of them in the comments, and I do read them, and I have tried a few of them on stream. And remember, for those saying, like, this isn't meta, it's not going to win you matches, at the end of the day, do what makes you happy. If you have fun with a certain build, like I do with Celebrate Poster and the Obsession build, then just go for it. No one is here to judge you. The only person judging you is you. Even if you stream like I do, I don't care if my chat thinks my build sucks, right? If they think it sucks, they think it sucks. If I can make it work, I can make it work. And that's all that really matters. But as always, I love you guys. Have a good one. I'll see you all in the next one. And yeah, bye.